At the start of every project, it takes a little destruction, and destruction indeed, because we have big plans for this front end. I think I can make something I've been trying to do for a long time actually work, but it's going to take a little planning and forethought to really pull it off. On the front of most modern day race cars, you see their radiator ducted straight out the hood. This requires a 45-degree angle on the radiator to get optimal airflow through it and decrease engine temps and frontal area. To do so, there are some very tight packaging restraints and hurdles that we have to jump through. Looking at this car, you can see that there's good reason this has never been done. Clearly, there is no room to fit a 45-degree radiator and ductwork. But with a custom subframe and pushing everything forward as much as we can, I think I can make this work. I've been contemplating different methods for years now, and finally decided to pull the trigger. This is all unknown territory for me, but I hope I can figure it out in the end and make something that possibly can cool down this beast of a motor. I've been searching for the perfect radiator to fit in these tight restraints. Turns out that the Mini Cooper has a radiator that is small enough but should allow for adequate airflow. We're starting with a redesign of the tubular structure that holds the radiator and subassembly. We need to make it as light as possible while still maintaining rigidity and structural integrity. The placement of this bar is extremely critical because it holds multiple elements, and if it's not perfectly aligned, the front of the car will look a little bit off. More than it already does, of course. Now that I'm relatively happy on its placement, we can move on to the finer details of things and work on mounting this radiator and intercooler a little bit more permanently. We have to start by making a couple of changes to the radiator because it doesn't quite fit in the original design. Alright, we got a delivery today, courtesy of China's finest. Luckily, we're going to be chopping off some of these, but that might have to get fixed. Unfortunately, this radiator isn't of the highest quality, but we're going to be cutting it up and making it our own. We are chopping off the edges of this radiator. It is slightly too wide to fit in the existing structure, and I don't really feel like chopping off anything else on the car. Also, we have to relocate the filler neck. The car usually is filled by the filler neck on the radiator. Because of the angle and the placement of this radiator, it will no longer be able to be filled properly. So we will tackle that at a later date. Man, that sucker got hot. It burned my phalanges, even with the gloves. Tackling some mounting brackets for the radiator now. You can see the sorry state of my garage. For it's busting from the seams. Everything is filled to the square inch. But alright, we got our layout lines all done up. Now we have to sneak in here to the press brake. God, I need a bigger garage. Unfortunately, I can only make do with the space that I have, but it is quite efficient and we seem to get a lot done in this area. Alright, this one fits a little bit too snug. Uno mas, por favor. I have been welding for some time now and continue to refine my skill, but it always seems that the fit up is the hardest part of any project. Some days I wish I had 8 arms, but today I only have 2 and a knee. Luckily I was able to get it tacked in place by myself. A helping hand is always a good thing to have around. Alright, so here's the first mock-up with the bumper. Kind of not working. I'm thinking we can cut this maybe all the way down and use the splitter as the bottom of course, the back. This is kind of in the way, so I'm thinking if I chop this and either rotate it or extend it, that way I can get my duct basically touching right here all the way across, and a nice swoop down, maybe tuck it in like that. Okay, I'm feeling good about the direction we're going. I'm thinking I'm gonna finalize these mounts. So we're tacking them up on the car, getting them ready. We're gonna pull them off, put them on the bench and TIG weld them. And then they're back on the car. Here we go. I'm testing out this new tube bender I got. Seems to be working pretty good. Of course, delivered from you know where, Amazon. Man, that's bright. I need to figure out a way to film this welding without blinding you guys. Now you can see I like setting up the piece I'm welding on a little piece of aluminum. That way it sucks some of the heat out. That's looking good. There's something so satisfying about making these little brackets. They're so simple, but they just hit different. Alright, we are really chopping up this radiator. There is not much left of the original. Not gonna be easy if I ever need to replace this thing. You know, gonna have to be doing all kinds of fab work to get it back in there. This is why I always save every little piece of metal. Found these at the bottom of the scrap bin. You know, they're gonna be perfect for this. Yeah, I just keep telling myself that. Finally changing out this blade. When I picked up this bandsaw, the guy gave me a whole stack of blades with it. They're all wood blades, but seem to work pretty good on aluminum. Still searching for that perfect blade though. Who needs a tape measure when you got perfectly calibrated eyeballs? The old drill press. I love this thing. I picked it up out of a wood shop down in Costa Mesa. Been serving me well. Don't mind the run out. It's perfectly within tolerance. You know, 50,000s. I just hate going to the store. I could not find any rubber bushings in my pile of junk, so I took a piece of radiator hose that my neighbor gave me. Gonna cut a little piece of this, act as a bushing. I think it'll do just fine. The welder was not playing nice today. I think I had my gas flow setting a little bit off. Trying out this 5 cup. Supposed to save on argon. That tripod looking thing's called a third hand. Very, very useful. I love this thing. Doing a little CAD work, laying out some lines. Don't even need a plasma cutter with how fast I can cut. Just using the transfer punch to scratch a little bit at this thing with the offset makes it kind of hard to line up the hole. Just gives me enough reference to get my center mark on there. We are getting right after today. I would love to TIG weld this whole front end, but you just can't do it out here in the wind. If you got any tricks, let me know. I thought of everything. I'll set up cardboard. I was thinking maybe put a gazebo out there or a canopy and block it all in, but sometimes it's easier just to MIG weld it. Doesn't look as pretty though. The wind is really the only thing that makes me lose it. There's nothing worse than you're in the middle of a weld and it goes crinkly on you. I just lose all control. The werewolf in me comes out. I scream to the gods. Makes me wonder what my neighbors think of me. Picked up this fine piece of Chinese knockoff aluminum. We'll see how it holds up. I don't see anything wrong with it so far. Alright, we're mocking up the radiator neck. I've been trying to ignore this for as long as I can, but can't ignore it any longer. Alright, we'll weld this up real quick. Get it on the car. Yep, you can see how tight that is. Not gonna be easy to weld, but that's a problem for future me. Trying to give this thing every chance I can get to flow good. Not optimal, but I painted myself in this corner and now I gotta live with it. Well, it's definitely not pretty, but I managed to weld it. Had a really hard time getting my torch in there and getting it to fuse, but it's on. Holy smokes. All right, guys, check it out. I think it came out pretty good. Pretty close there to the alternator. But we'll be able to sneak our tube right on over, and then it'll give us room to sneak in down here for the tin work. Tin work's gonna come up and out. All right, guys, that is all we have time for today, unfortunately. In the next video, we're gonna be tackling all of that duct work. It's gonna be a lot of tin work, a lot of sheet metal, rolling, beading, all that whatnot. Appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned.